Hello and welcome to the GamesCreed podcast. I'm your host, Andresplays, and as always, I'm joined by a very special guest today, M, aka Best of Aloy.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Best of Aloy. I'm M.
Yeah.
I That's my username because typically a username like that you
Mhm.
would post a bunch of pictures of that character, which I do, but I
Yeah,
just want to share all the best moments of her and her story. So,
of course. Yeah, and as you listeners might have guessed, today we're going to be talking about Horizon, which is one of our favorite franchises of all time. And today I actually do have my Horizon shirt on, the one from Forbidden West. Aloy is here.
oh, I love it. I wanted to show this. I'm actually
Yeah.
wearing my ring that has all
Oh
the
my God.
cauldron symbols on
Yes.
it.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And then I also am wearing Rost's little necklace that he gives Aloy.
Ah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
a
my
classic.
prized possessions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I've been thinking a lot about this because each episode I focus on one topic, and Horizon is one franchise that is really dear to me, and we'll get on talking about that. But I was thinking, like, when will I be able to talk about it, right? Because they're like Horizon Forbidden West, and the DLC just came out a year ago.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any new content on the Horizon.
Mhm.
But then boom, we get Horizon Zero Dawn remastered, and then
Which was
Lego
crazy.
Horizon. Yes, I was really blown away. I had heard the rumors, of course, but to actually see it happen, and also happen so quickly, so
Yeah.
nowadays a game announcement is, I don't know, months or
Yeah,
years
I
away.
know. Like, that happened at a State of Play, and
Yeah,
they were like, "It's coming out October 31st," and it
yeah.
was, like, maybe a month or a little more away, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? How long have they been working on this?" 'Cause
Yeah.
I just I was kind of late getting into Horizon.
Hmm.
I was in college at the time, and
Right.
I hadn't been playing video games for I don't remember when I started playing video games again.
Hmm.
I've been playing them since I was young, but
Hmm.
once you get into school and university and stuff like that, you
Yeah.
kind of have to focus on, schooling and things like that. So
Yeah. Studying and whatnot. Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't. So I got into it late. Probably Horizon Zero Dawn came out in 2017,
Yeah.
and it was probably 2019 or 2020 when I finally played the
Wow.
game, and I didn't know anything about it. I was on like a stan account on Twitter for like
Uh-huh.
Criminal Minds. And
That's
I
awesome. That's a great
I
show.
had just got back into really gaming a lot on my
Hmm.
PS4 at the time. And I was asking my mutuals about, what games they would recommend. And
Hmm.
somebody mentioned Horizon. And I went into GameStop and I
Hmm.
found it and it was on sale. So I bought it, didn't look up anything about it, and just here we are now. And I'm just obsessed. It's my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
Aloy is my favorite protagonist of all time in like the video
Yeah.
game world.
And I'm really glad that I get to talk about Horizon with you, because what you just said is fascinating to me, because I have a similar story. I was thinking about my context with Horizon. These past few days I've been playing both of them, Forbidden West and
Mhm.
Zero Dawn. And while I was playing the remaster of Zero Dawn, these memories came flooding back to me. When I did play it in 2017. I've always played video games, but there's been times where life got in the way. And from
Yeah.
2015 to 2017, I was a DJ, right? So I was like socializing a lot.
Whoa,
Yeah, it was
okay.
a fun time. But then, like, it all, like, I did what I kind of wanted to do, play some really great gigs and meet
Yeah.
people. And then, like, I like socializing, but I'm also an introvert. So then it came to a point, like, I had a breakup, and like, I was like, well, I have some free time to play video games. I got a job as a translator, and then I had more time to play video
Mhm.
games. And then I wasn't really engaged with them, as I used
Right.
to. And then I find Horizon as well. Um, and it just caught, like, my attention. It sparked my love for video games all over again. The story, the gameplay, Aloy, especially as a new nuanced character,
Yeah.
is something that I was like, what am I playing? Like, this is,
Yeah.
I don't know, marvelous, a masterpiece or something. And then, it all went down rolling from there. But yeah, it
Yeah.
sparked my love for gaming again. So,
Yeah, it was just, I don't know what it was, but my first time playing through it, I was obviously pretty confused about a lot of things until you kind of get a good way through the story.
yeah,
And then once I finished the game, I immediately replayed it just because
yeah,
I don't know if a lot of other people will agree, but once you play a game, if you play through it a couple more times, you kind of start to understand the lore a lot better
yeah.
and the story itself and the characters. And that still happens to me. Like I just finished playing and platinuming
Hmm.
the remaster. So
Yeah.
even now I'm still every time I play that game I learn something new or some revelation comes to me or realization and I'm like, "Oh my god. I didn't
Yeah.
even notice this the last time I played, which was not that long ago." But
Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's beautiful that you mention it that way, because I was thinking exactly the same thing, because first time you're stumbling about trying to make sense of what happened, how did the world end, where what are all these corpses doing here? These stories of people, quite
Yeah.
tragic, right?
And why is this girl an outcast? Why did
Yeah,
she get outcast as a baby? Like where's her mom?
yeah. There's a great mystery on several levels, right? Like the mystery of
Yeah.
the world, the mystery of Aloy, the mystery of how they got to the current situation.
Yeah.
So, of course, replaying it, I was like, and it hits even harder, right? Now that you know the background of the story, when you listen to the recordings of the people like saying goodbye and stuff, it's like,
Oh
whoa,
my
like it's
god.
yes.
The audio logs are
Uh-huh.
crazy. So for anyone listening that doesn't know,
Mm.
audio logs are they were a way to who the tribes know as the old ones to
Hmm.
kind of record what was happening as spoiler alert the world was ending. um, I'm trying not to give too much away, but
Right.
Horizon Zero Dawn has been out for a couple of years, so
Mm.
more than a couple of years. Um, and then there are also the data points, which they're really important to the story as a whole. And
Hmm.
I know that when I first played, I kind of would look over them every now and then and not really fully
Yeah.
capture what they were saying, but they're
Uh-huh.
pretty important to the lore of the entire world.
It's amazing to me when someone criticizes the writing, because I think it's one of the best written games of all time.
Oh,
And one of
yeah.
the main reasons I see that is on the data points, because I still remember, like, I haven't even gotten to that part yet in my replay, but I remember this kind of forum, that conversation that people were having, right, like on a
Yeah.
chat, and they were just like kind of saying goodbye and like their last thoughts before,
Oh, I remember
and
that.
that, and
Yeah.
you see, like, it's impressive how they were able to capture the sense of dread, the sense
Yeah, like devastation.
of humanity's, like,
Yeah.
feeling at that moment. Like, it feels real, like we've
Right.
seen world ending situations in movies and games all the time, but the way that Horizon is like juxtaposing Aloy as this endlessly curious character, trying to make sense of the world and being quite hopeful, and
Mhm.
then how everything ended is I think is beautiful.
Right. Right. So, let's actually talk about Aloy as a character because
Yeah.
I'm sure that some listeners that maybe haven't played the game are completely not understanding what we're talking about. Um, so Aloy, we you start the game and you start and
Mhm.
a big burly guy named Rost. You see him first and he has this newborn baby girl and you're kind of like, "Okay, what's going on?"
Mhm.
So, you go through that whole intro, which is a very beautiful intro scene by the way. And the high matriarchs of what is known as the tribe Denora, Tirsa comes to bless this child's name,
Mhm.
and it's Aloy. Ross names her Aloy, and you find out that they're outcasts,
Yeah.
and you don't really know why, especially because why would Aloy be an outcast as a child?
Yeah.
So even she, a lot of times throughout the intro and with Rost, is questioning, why am I an outcast? Who was my mother? I'm outcast because I'm motherless. A lot of the kids that she comes across in the intro kind of bully her for it.
Yeah.
They throw things at her. And then a little while into the game, she falls into a hole, as a child does,
Yeah.
and she finds herself in what is a metal ruin underground, kind of like a bunker situation. And she comes across a little triangle device known as a focus.
Uh-huh.
And focuses were essentially kind of I like to think of them almost as like maybe the iPhones of the old world. What would
Right.
be kind of phones in general
Yeah,
these
modern
days?
devices. Yeah, like
Yeah, modern
they help
devices.
you interact with the world. Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, she finds this focus,
Mhm.
and then she's able to explore the ruin more as she's trying to get out
Mhm.
of it.
Mhm.
And she comes across an old data point, which is actually kind of like a visual data point.
Oh yeah.
There's an image of one of the people from the past that have now died.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, hologram,
giving-
yeah.
yeah, giving a birthday message to his son. And she's so enamored by it that she even replays it. And
Yeah.
it actually carries on with her throughout the games. We see it again in Forbidden West. So, and then, eventually she gets out of the ruin. Rost finds her father figure, who's not actually her father. Sorry to spoil it.
No, you're fine.
So yeah, she gets out, and then he initially wants to take it from her because the Nora don't it's forbidden for the Nora tribe to go into old world ruins. It's seen as, it's an evil place, which is why it's forbidden. But then we meet a character named Teb who falls from a cliff, and
Oh yeah.
and he's surrounded by machines that are going to end up finding him. And Ross says that they'll probably stomp him to death. They're known as Striders. They're very beautiful machines. They're
They
like
are.
horses. And Aloy is able to make her way through to help him because of her focus device. She's able
Uh-huh.
to see the paths that the machines are making, so she's able to sneak by them, stealth mode, to get to Teb and lead him out of it, which in turn encourages Rost to let her keep it because he
Right.
realizes, oh, it's not just a little toy that you found, it's something that could be beneficial to you in the future and through your training. So even though he doesn't love it, he can see that it's beneficial for her. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we initially meet Aloy and how she ends up with this old world technology that is going to help us get through all of the games, help her through all of it.
Yeah. Thank you for
Sorry,
this
God,
intro.
I
No, it's
yap a lot.
no, it's absolutely perfect. I think that what Guerrilla, the developer studio, did with that intro, setting up the world, setting up her character, and also Ross being so conflicted because he's just a warrior and now
Yeah.
a hunter, and then he has to teach a child how to live when he can barely
Right.
get
Yeah.
by himself, right? And
Hmm.
it's interesting to see both of them grow. It's great to see like he sees Aloy. Well, for him it's playing, but like she's actually learning about the world through the focus, right? Which has all of this
Yeah.
information of the people that came before them. So I think it's a very strong introduction to the universe of Horizon, and
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
from there, it just hits the ground running.
Yeah, and then we get her training sequence, which is
Yeah.
one of the most iconic sequences in the series as a whole. You see her training with Rost, and she's failing at first
Yeah.
because she's, young and she's not used to this kind of training. But as we grow with her, you see her become a very proficient warrior in herself, which the reason she's doing that is because in the Nora tribe, there's something known as the Proving, which Nora children who turn 18, they can compete in something known as the Proving. It's essentially a
Yeah.
It's an event
Yeah.
which you hunt machines to get
Mhm.
a trophy part from them,
Mhm.
and then you have to run through a whole obstacle type course
Yeah.
to get to the end. And once you get to the finish line, if you have your trophy, those Noras, whether they win or not, become Nora Braves, which are
Mhm.
kind of the soldiers for the Nora tribe. But
Right.
whoever wins
Mhm.
is able to get, they have their own kind of special requests they can make to the high matriarchs, which are
Mhm.
the essentially the leaders of the government for the Nora tribe.
Right.
Um, and something in that kind of the text is even
Yeah.
outcasted children who reach the age of 18, they're also allowed to compete in the proving in a
Mhm.
way to be introduced back into the tribe and not be outcast any longer.
Of course.
So that's what Rost is training Aloy for, because
Mhm.
obviously she wants to know who her mother was, and Rost lets her know that the High Matriarchs may know.
Mhm.
So that's what kind of kickstarts all of it for her, and
Yeah.
it's what encourages her for the whole intro of the story until we finally get to that. And
Yeah.
that's when things start to go really crazy and even more questions come into
Yeah.
fold. It's like, oh, this is going to be a long story for us.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, and I think we can get into like a few of the nuances, because I mean, as a Horizon episode, I would think that at least some of the people can have a general gist. But the thing is, I remember, for example, the side quests, right?
Mhm.
I was just, as I said, replaying the beginning, and they're very intense. Actually, one of the characters has some sort of mental issue, right? And you have to her sister asks you to go find him because he
Right.
killed
Yeah.
someone and he's scared for his life and whatnot. So it's to like off the bat hit you with something really deep,
Yeah.
and you get to see instantly that Aloy, because of her advantage over the whole world around her, her
Mhm.
access is this pool of endless information. She has more of a character, and more knowledgeable naturally of the rest of the people, right?
Right.
So it's really interesting to see, because I understand that for some people she might come off as aggressive or standoffish, but I do
Mhm.
like her because she's not. I think she's quite noble,
Right.
and
Yeah.
has like a heart of gold. But I think sometimes people need to realize that you have to be on the same wavelength as her, right? Like
Right.
she has this great knowledge of many things, and people still like she's not even like religious, right? And all of these
Mhm.
people. To continue a little bit, like she gets to meet like a lot of tribes other than the Noras. There's the Karjas, and other tribes. So every tribe has their own way of doing things, right? And most
Mhm.
of them are quite religious and rigid in their way of doing things. So Aloy is sort of there to like break break every convention possible, because
Right.
she's aware that well, eventually there's a greater way to do things
Right.
than the way the cultures now actually have it, which is venerating some of them, the old gods, right?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
crazy because it's just people, like the
Yeah.
civilization that was just came before them. They
Right.
were not gods in any way. They were just people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
In terms of side quests, I think that they also can be very important to the story
Mm-hmm.
in both games, because you kind of can find out a lot of information about how different tribes
Mm-hmm.
kind of see themselves and what their sort of religious views are,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm not entirely sure a lot of the tribes completely understand what religion is. They just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Great
have
point.
come to know what the very first, new
Mm-hmm.
humans kind of came to believe.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the side quest where we see kind of like mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a side quest very similar in
Mm-hmm.
terms of showing it in Forbidden West, which it's kind of more a debilitating disorder where
Oh.
it was the guy, it's a man struggling with, I believe, like dementia. So,
Mm-hmm.
and Aloy kind of is assisting him in finding his way back home.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, but those are some of the like super interesting side quests to me, because it's just like amazing that they
Yeah.
included things like that into this game, where these tribes don't understand why this is happening, or why, you know,
Yeah.
these disorders are happening, and why they have them, or even what they are. They just assume that it's kind of like a devil or a
Yeah.
demon
Yeah.
essentially in them that's
Yeah, it's
causing them to
rough.
do
Yeah.
this. Yeah. And, you know, Aloy, with her knowledge of the ancient world, she's kind of able to gently let them know that this isn't some higher power, you know, commanding you to do things. It's just something that happens.
Yeah, of course.
And
It's human
yeah,
nature.
yeah, she
Yeah.
kind of is able to help them get a better understanding of it, or at least become more gentle with the way that they treat the people that have these
Oh
mental
yeah.
disorders and things like that. Yeah. But in terms of her as a
Yeah.
character and the way that some people see her as, I've seen her described as so many bad things.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um,
And all of them are
but
untrue, but like I think she's
yeah,
just misunderstood.
I think one of the main things for me is she's been an outcast since she was born.
hmm
Um
Shunned, as Ross
yeah,
repeatedly says,
when
like,
she's come into close contact with other members of tribes, she's been called motherless, like a savage,
yeah.
just all these disgusting things,
Horrible, indeed.
and she still is going out of her way
hmm
to save the world, which includes all of these people that have really
Yeah.
been giving her quite a hard time.
hmm
Um,
Yeah.
and we see it with one of the I don't know what he is. He's kind of like the temporary war chief
hmm
in the Nora tribe. He, even after all of this, once we find out who Aloy really is,
hmm
what
hmm
her destiny is, he still is hostile towards her.
Yeah.
So it's it's one of those things where you see it in the real world as well, when people are so set in their ways and in their beliefs
Yeah.
that even when you come to them with knowledge and facts, they still will
Rejected, yeah.
shun you for it. Yeah, which really sucks. But in Aloy's case, it's kind of, I think that she has every right to be standoffish when she meets someone new, because she doesn't know what their intentions are, and
hmm
she's
hmm
always been pretty much alone. Once you know, after the proving and all of that, she ventures off by herself. So in Forbidden West, we see that eventually she ends up with a group of people who want to help her, which is something that's incredibly new to her, because she
hmm
didn't grow up having that.
Yeah.
So while I can see where people are coming from, I
hmm
think that if you play, okay, so a lot of people kind of stop
Yeah.
playing the game because
hmm
of her attitude and all of that.
Uh-huh.
But I just feel like if you stick with it, once we progress through these games, you
hmm
kind of see her start to let her walls down a little bit
hmm
and become more accepting of help
hmm
and of people being in her life, and
Yeah.
even of, you know, falling in love
Yeah.
and finding like happiness with other people, and just
Yeah.
almost she finds a found family. So um,
Yeah, it's quite understanding. How when you see how she acts and you pay attention to how she acts from the first game, sorry, and on to Forbidden West. I remember I was listening to a conversation of Ashley Birch, right, and they were talking about how Aloy should say things,
mhm.
how Alo has grown because she's also endeared herself so much, and what a great actress and character.
Yeah.
To the point where she can, give some feedback, not just read the dialogue, and be more truthful to what Aloy is. And I think that a lot of nuance is lost. But if you listen to the conversations, if you listen to the way that she says things, sometimes like, she's enjoying herself, but she's holding back, or she has to be really careful about not coming off as smart as to other people, because
Right.
she does know a lot that other people don't, but she doesn't want to be like that or come off as mean like that. She's just, and what's most important in the games, as an overview, who doesn't know that, like, the first game is basically about Aloy finding her mother, right? Or like
Mhm.
understanding where she came from.
Right.
And the second one is more about kind of saving the world from a bigger threat, right? In broad strokes. So to see the character like have literally the weight of the world hanging on her shoulders,
Yeah.
I think that there has to be a little bit of empathy, from the player's perspective, to
Yeah.
understand the way that she behaves, and she's
Yeah.
not entirely unlikable. I think that she's made me laugh a lot, because some of her remarks are it's nuanced.
Yeah.
It's not easy to just like put an example here. You have to listen to it, and you have to understand the context where it's coming from.
Right.
But I understand, you know the criticism, but I don't think it's valid. Like, there's a lot there,
Right.
in all of the senses. Like, for example, let's say the side characters that eventually end up becoming, right,
Mhm.
her friends. I was thinking maybe we could start with Silence. If
Yeah.
you want to give
Yeah.
an introduction of who Silence is, because I love that character,
Right. Yeah.
and his relationship with Aloy.
Right. Yeah. So Silence is kind of, we meet him in Horizon Zero Dawn as a voice that comes through Aloy's focus, which is also how we kind of find out that you can communicate through the focuses if another person has one. And initially, it feels like he is here to assist her, which he does.
Mhm.
But as we go on through the story, you realize that he kind of, I would probably label him kind of like a anti-hero.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because he's very much a narcissistic character. He kind of believes that he is smarter than a lot of people.
Yeah.
He's used people in the past to kind of get his way.
Mhm.
He's even used Aloy. In
Mhm.
one mission, he sends her to go infiltrate the communication system. And when all of it goes down, Aloy finds out that she could have lost her life there because there were a lot of enemies. And Silence tells her, I knew it would risk your life, but I was willing to do it.
Mm.
So he's almost using Aloy in the first game as a key to get information for himself, but we don't initially realize that until, the
Mhm.
following games and all of that.
Mhm.
So he is a very interesting character, and I think he's also a really important
Mhm.
character in Aloy's story as a whole,
Yeah.
because he is, despite all of his ways that are kind of immoral, he
Yeah.
still um, is incredibly smart, incredibly crafty and helpful,
Mhm.
and plays a major role in the second game. So yeah, I love Silence as a character.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you said his background perfectly. I was thinking a lot about a conversation I had with someone on social media, that he didn't believe, by the end of Forbidden West, a sort of group of people get together against a bigger
Mhm.
threat, right? And Silence is a part of that. So he doesn't believe that he would do that, right? Because of his previous malevolent or Machiavello's ways, which he never
Mhm.
really reveals his motives, which is,
Right.
I think, as a character, is one of the most intriguing ones. But there's a conversation Aloy and him have, by the end of the DLC of Burning Shores, that confirms what the writers know about Silence, that like he's never doing things just out of the goodness of his heart.
Mhm.
He always has something planning in the background. He's
Right.
always quite, as you say, crafty, and he might like help, but it's because he has something in it as well.
Yeah.
He's never gonna do something if it doesn't benefit him. So
Right.
it's intriguing to see that, because Aloy is just relentless in her search for saving the world, while he is the complete opposite. He's quite egotistical and just thinking about himself. So to
Yeah.
see them working together, right, with completely different motives.
Right. Yeah. I think that they sort of are very beneficial to each other because
Hmm.
I feel like with their conversations that they have throughout the game, it almost feels like they're making a impression on one another. I feel like Aloy kind of has helped Silence realize that maybe the world is worth saving. Um,
Hmm.
and he doesn't have to just be this lone wolf character that is in it for personal gain. He can actually help make a real difference in the world that they're in. But yeah, I really I love him as a character. I think that he's just, again, one of the most interesting side characters.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it was tough, right? When Lance Reddick died recently, right?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, really. And I wanted to talk also as well. There's a death. I'm not gonna say who it is, but there's a death of a character in Forbidden West, and I really love going back to what we said about the side quests and these really difficult subject matters. I really like that Horizon faces them head on as a franchise as a whole.
Yeah.
So there's a death of a character, and the game takes the time to slow down, to let the characters grieve,
Yeah.
to talk about what happened. And there's even also like a side quest, right, where you like gather some flowers or something,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
quite it's very touching, and it's something that you don't see very often in games at all. Like it's just like brushed off, right? So I don't know, in general, topics of Horizon, they're really quite well balanced. The heavy themes of like the world ending, and also the friendships that Aloy
Right. Yeah.
makes.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotion throughout the story as a whole,
Hmm.
and I think that sometimes that can get lost on many players because maybe they don't take the time to kind of try to fully understand each character, which that is something I can understand because
Yeah.
if this game isn't your normal kind of play style, uh this game takes a lot of hours to get through, especially if you go through each optional conversation
Yeah.
with the characters. And although it feels long because it is,
Mhm.
it's something that is really important to, kind of understand who each character is and how they are going to be able to assist Aloy and just be in her life in general.
Mhm. Mhm.
That also goes for, antagonist characters.
Mhm.
Sometimes you will have long optional conversations with them to kind of understand,
Their motives, yeah.
yeah, their motives and what they think that their own legacy is, which is something that we see in Horizon Zero Dawn with the main antagonist. At one
Right.
point, we are able to, converse with him, and
Hmm.
although he's out of his mind, it kind of helps you understand where he's coming from and why he has the beliefs that he does.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I
Yeah.
think that all of the conversations aren't super like massive to the story,
Hmm.
but many of them are, especially
Hmm.
with your main side characters.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll name them. There's Varl, there's Aaron,
Uh,
um, even Tirsa,
uh-huh.
the one of the High Matriarchs. We find out from her why Rost was an outcast at the end of Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a super interesting conversation to kind of
Yeah.
that helps you understand who Rost was as a character, why he took Aloy in, and why his motives were what they were.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just I think that all of this is so important to the story. And again, if it's not something that you're used to in a game, then that's going to be overwhelming for you at first,
Of
and
course.
you might have to play through it, twice or a third time.
Yeah, they definitely add to the world building. Even if it's not like that main important to the main story, it adds to the sense of the world around you, and
Yeah.
gives you more of an understanding of how everything works and why Aloy is doing what she's doing.
Mhm.
You mentioned side characters, and I like that there's some decision making in there. I remember Regala is one of the
Mm-hmm.
main antagonists in the beginning of Forbidden West as well, and there's choices that you can make to either, make her be by your side or not, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important, if you want to, if you as a player want to understand their motives, if you want to really know how they did things or why they did things,
Mm-hmm.
because Aloy is always Aloy has always been this outsider, right? So to understand how tribes work, why they do what they do, even if it seems backwards to her, and it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people are sacrificed, some are at war, and she's like, "Why are you fighting?" Right? Like there's a bigger threat than this
Yeah,
infighting
yeah,
that you have, right?
yeah.
So it's great that she can't just tell them like, "Oh, there's this bigger threat. You should stop fighting." No, she has to actually go and talk to each of them and try to be empathetic, and rally them to her side, towards a better goal.
Right, yeah. I totally agree. Regala was such an interesting character, by the way.
Hmm.
And I think in decisions like that, you kind of, I've seen some people say that, which I agree with them, you kind of have to get into the mind of who Aloy is as a person.
Hmm.
She's always been understanding, and even though a lot of things don't make sense to her, she still tries to understand where someone is coming from. You even see it in the first game with a character named Olin.
Hmm.
You know, you can choose what his fate is. And Aloy, she has this bigger legacy that she has to fulfill. So bringing unnecessary death to a character, to me, isn't really what she's about.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but it is very cool and interesting that they put those options in the game for the players.
Hmm.
Because I guess if you're playing through it in your own kind of emotional way, you may decide to end a character's life, which is something that I have done in the games.
Yeah.
I've replayed them a few times, so but it is interesting to kind of see the differences on whether or not you keep a character alive or, in their life.
Hmm.
It's really cool that there are. I like that they've put in these kind of options for Aloy to decide how she responds to things.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you see that a ton in some open world games. There's not always options to be able to choose how you react to what a character has done.
Yeah, they're rather linear, and yeah, I
Yeah.
like how she can react with her heart, with her mind, or aggressively, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's intrinsic to her character, because that's, I think, all of those three elements are what are fighting for her.
Yeah.
Because yeah, she's noble, but like she can't be too kind to others, because then they'll take advantage of her,
Right.
right? She can't give in too much into logic, because then she'll lose that human touch.
Mhm.
And she can be too aggressive, because she will lose herself in the process. So it's really intriguing to see all of these different options that you can take, as a player, and to see all of the different ways that she reacts, because she is the heart and soul of Horizon, right?
Right.
This fiery redhead, which is fantastic to see her grow, as you said in the beginning. She ends up crumbling down her walls a little bit.
Mhm.
With I remember now, I was trying to talk about Alba, this
Yeah.
character, which it really drew a smile on my face, because Alba is this character from a new tribe that's introduced in Forbidden West, and she also has um, this unending sense of curiosity, just like Aloy, maybe not as a hunter, but just as a scholar. And
Mhm.
she also has a focus. She's always had a focus. So when she gets to meet Aloy and they start talking about the scientific situation of it all, you can see Aloy. I think for the first time in her life, her face brightens up, right? Because she's like, she finally sees someone that understands her, that like she
Yeah.
doesn't need to like dumb down her conversation, like she knows
Right.
that there's someone on her level
Yeah.
with Alba, and that's something that's quite refreshing to hear. And there's many situations like that you get to see in the sequel that are really gratifying to see Aloy grow as a character.
So Alva is from a tribe known as the Quinn, which isn't introduced to us until Forbidden West. Many tribes are mentioned in Horizon Zero Dawn, but some of them we don't get to meet until Horizon Forbidden West. And it's the Quinn are super interesting as a tribe.
Yeah.
They it's heavily implied that they aren't from where Aloy was born. They're from, somewhere else, from a different cradle facility. And they are the only tribe that is pretty, advanced in knowledge of the old world, because they all they know what a focus is, and there are kind of higher ups known as diviners that wear focuses and find out old information from the old world. So I think that the Quinn are really, I think Aloy is probably intrigued by them the most, because they, for the first time, she kind of has seen a tribe now that can maybe understand where she comes from, that don't, they kind of can understand what the old world was.
Exactly.
Even if not fully so. So I agree with you that I think that maybe that's why she was also so intrigued by Alva, and I feel like Alva will play a very big role in the third installment of Horizon.
Absolutely.
Whenever that will be. It'll probably be a while, but
yeah. No, and I'm absolutely excited by it. Before we wrap up and I ask you about your favorite moment, there's one thing that I wanted to talk about, which is naturally Project Zero Dawn, which is because you just had Cradle, and my mind just went like, yes, I knew there was something missing.
Yeah.
And that is something that to this day I love science fiction.
Yeah.
So to create this new sci-fi universe with the with this great idea of like a hunter fighting robot dinosaurs might sound ludicrous in the beginning, but like the more you understand the story of Aloy and the universe of Horizon, it's I'm blown away by the justification of it. Like, why did it happen is because of Project Zero Dawn, right? Because robots took over the world, and they created this project to kind of make the world reborn a
Right,
1,000 years later.
save humanity. Maybe not in their current time, but for the future, to
Yeah.
give life, for the future, for the planet. I agree. First of all, Project Zero Dawn, crazy, thing to name it. So amazing. I love the name.
Yeah.
But it was created by a very famous and talented scientist, Elizabeth Sobek, who is also a very important part in Aloy's story. One of the most important parts to understand her as a character.
Yeah.
But yeah, Project Zero Dawn was created by her to save the world from killer robots that had went rogue, and there was no way to override them or go into the coding system to stop them, because their creator, Ted Farrow, just awful man,
Absolutely.
was so sure of these machines that he didn't have a back door for them to go in and shut them down. So life on Earth as they knew it was going to be destroyed unless there was some way to reverse it. And luckily, Elizabeth Sobek thought of a way, and while it wasn't, anyone's favorite, and there were a lot of lies involved to society as a whole while it was happening, it was the only thing that could save humanity for the future. So I think that's one of the most interesting parts about this story to me is Elizabeth Sobek is we see her as a hero, but there were a lot of decisions she had to make in Zero Dawn that would be like immoral to the normal person. You see it in one of the data points when you get to Project Zero Dawn, the facility where they kind of went and essentially kind of kidnapped some of the greatest minds in the world at that time to bring them to help with this project, to help preserve what humanity was and will be in the future.
Uh-huh.
And they were given 3 options. You stay and you help, or you're detained for the rest of your days until the
Mm-hmm.
world ends, or you can have you can be euthanized, like willfully euthanized, if that's something that you choose,
Yeah.
which is bizarre. When I when I got to that data point, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine how Elizabeth felt when she had to put those demands into place,
Mm-hmm.
or those rules into place.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was something that was necessary to save the world. And
It's rough, yeah.
luckily, they have included audio logs where we see choices from a lot of the members, and we see how choices from each of those decisions that they can make, which was super interesting to
Mm-hmm.
hear. I think just hearing them was more traumatic to discover than possibly seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
But so Project Zero Dawn, though, obviously was a success, and life was created again
Uh-huh.
for the planet. But now we've gotten to a point where Aloy is going to have to almost redo the whole thing so it can be saved again,
Yeah.
or just to kind of stop that from happening again, stop the destruction from happening again, due to like rogue machines and
Yeah.
the subordinates functions that were created for Zero Dawn. I really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a wonderful. It's just there's so much lore in these games,
Yeah.
that all lead back to one single, like, bigger story. And I think that it's a shame that a lot of people don't get to that point. But I am super hopeful that with the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, that a lot of people that weren't into the game at first will
Mm-hmm.
come back and play it now that the graphics have been improved, the mocap, they've recorded tons of hours to redo that.
Yeah, the
The lighting is
animations, yeah.
different. So yeah, in terms of the remaster, I feel like a lot of previous players' issues that maybe stopped the game or weren't into it
Mm-hmm.
was because of the kind of stagnant character when they would have conversations with the side characters and NPCs.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of movement, and it did at times would feel boring. You were just sitting there, and there was just
Mm-hmm.
conversation happening, and you couldn't keep up with it because the characters weren't really making any expressions. They weren't making any facial expressions or movement with their body. But with the remaster, it's so up to date with Forbidden West that
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of players will maybe get more out of it now and feel more like intrigued.
Gains,
They'll
yeah.
feel more intrigued with it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I also think that Forbidden West as a sequel, it's definitely one of the greatest. And also the increase in everything, right? Like
Hmm.
the stakes in the story are increased, the characters all look
Yeah.
incredible, the graphics, even though it was already a showpiece, right, for PlayStation.
Hmm.
Zero Dawn, then you get Forbidden West, and it's to this day one of the most graphically beautiful games
Right,
of all
yeah,
time,
and
right? Yeah.
yeah, and also just even as far as weapons, and those were increased, there were more weapons in Forbidden West that you had to kind of learn,
Yeah.
more traps. They included like a storage feature in
Yeah.
Forbidden West, which is super helpful.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, oh, something cool as well
Uh-huh.
for with the remaster is they kind of brought over a lot of settings
Yeah,
from
like
Forbidden
quality
West
of life
to
features. Yeah, like the
yeah,
auto loot, right? Auto
right,
pickup,
yeah,
yeah.
where you don't have to sit through the animation, which, I love the animation, but I will admit it was super helpful in the remaster to be able to
Yeah.
kind of turn that off and
Yeah,
just
after 40,
run
50
past them.
hours, like yeah, you wanna move on to like the story or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The fights, yeah, which I love. There is a fight on Horizon Call of the Mountain, the VR game, with a Stormbird, and also with a Thunderjaw, right? Which are absolutely impressive. And it's I know a lot of people say that, yeah, why does PlayStation gives Horizon so much love, and it's because it's a success. Even the studio at Guerrilla has said that it took them by surprise. Yes, they worked on it for 5 years with a lot of effort and love, but even then they didn't know that it would resonate with so many people.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that it's a success because you can see the effort put into it.
Right,
And so
yeah.
and so every single detail that we've said, the characters, the world building, the side quests, Aloy, as a character as well. So I don't know. I'm glad that we're having now Lego Horizon, the VR
Mhm.
game, the rumored MMO game as well, which I hope is also true. I'm gonna spend all my life there if we get a Horizon MMO.
I know,
Honestly.
which I personally haven't heard a ton about it,
Uh-huh.
and I also unfortunately haven't been able to play Call of the Mountain because I don't have a VR.
Yeah. No,
I really
it's
want
fine.
one, but I don't have one. Um, but yeah, Lego Horizon, I just finished playing it,
Hmm.
and it was incredible. I've been telling people that I feel like it's a much lighter introduction to the series if
Hmm.
you're young, like a kid,
Of course.
yeah, like even like 13-year-olds would be kind of a lighter introduction to the series as a whole. I don't think that it could
Hmm.
fully you can't get a full understanding of the story unless you play the games, but it's
Hmm.
definitely kind of a easy way to kind of understand who Aloy is. Because even in the Lego game, although it's very cutesy and very lighthearted due
Hmm.
to it being pretty family friendly,
Right.
um, the playable characters still go through revelations
Oh.
and are trying to figure out kind of who they are and what their purposes are. So you still get
Hmm.
quite an emotional an
Hmm.
emotional like punch in the Lego Horizon game as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been seeing some complaints with the remaster about,
Hmm.
the character models and things like that. And then in term with Lego Horizon and its the length of it, how long it takes to play.
Hmm.
And I just feel like Guerrilla Studios maybe wanted to put more work into the remaster. And that's not
Uh-huh.
to take anything away from Lego Horizon. It's wonderful, but I can totally understand why they wanted to maybe keep that shorter,
Yeah.
um, and to be able to put this massive work into the remaster of Horizon Zero Dawn because it is a massive game,
Yeah.
not to the giant of Forbidden West, but it definitely was a big project for them.
Of course.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, Lego Horizon is incredible and highly suggest it to anyone, because it's kind of it's almost like a cozy Horizon game,
Yeah.
weirdly.
Uh-huh.
Despite the story being so dark, if you know what it is,
Of course.
it's a cozier game.
Yeah, yeah, no, and also I don't know who came up with the idea, but I think it's brilliant because the Horizon universe is quite bright. It's quite, I mean, and I'm talking about specifically the colors, right? It's
Mhm,
bright, it's colorful. You see all of this flora and fauna. Everything just like jumps off the screen, right?
mhm.
It's really beautiful to see in any sense. So to translate that into Lego is, now that it's here, it's almost like a no-brainer. But then when I saw it announced, I was like, oh, it's unbelievable, right? Like who thought of
Yeah,
that? But now I'm like, yes, I do want to play it soon as well, and I'm glad that it exists, because I'm sure like there really are more than what last time they said, like 27 million copies sold or something.
yeah,
I know
lots.
that there's like a passionate fan base. People cosplaying as Aloy, as Eren, and
Mhm.
as Varl. It's just really beautiful to see, and I really wanted to dedicate a whole episode to it, and I'm pretty sure we could even talk for so much more about
Oh
the
my god.
combat and about the
Yeah,
nuances of each character, right? Eren or Sigrun. I'm just really glad that I got the chance to talk about it with you because the passion for the series shines through. I play many games, but I have a soft spot for Horizon. I
yeah,
always try to replay it or like maybe download it and play one or two side quests or just fly on the Sunbird because
yeah,
it's an unparalleled feeling that no other game can give me.
yeah. It's a captivating world, and I think that anyone that is a fan of it and has spent hours playing it will say the same thing. It's just Aloy as a character is wonderful. Ashley Birch, as we've mentioned, is just fantastic. Has done a fantastic job as Aloy and has really been able to we've been able to feel her emotions through her voice, which is so important. But yeah, the world is just, you could spend hours in it, and a lot of people have. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. Anytime anyone is like, does anyone have any game recommendations? It's always the first one that I recommend. Especially if you're wanting to get into open world, because I feel like Horizon as a franchise, its open world is maybe, more up to the modern standard in gaming now than a lot of other open world games that are maybe a couple years older than it and things like that. It's definitely a world worth getting into, and I can see why Aloy is PlayStation's new showgirl. Like, she's just wonderful as a character, and
I love it.
she's an incredible female lead, which is needed so much more in the gaming world. So it's great that, new coming gamers, younger gamers, have that kind of female lead to look up to, like young gaming girls and stuff like that. So I'm just absolutely floored at what Guerrilla has done to give us this. They created a wonderful story, and I'm looking forward to all of the new games to come. Like, I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. That is very loving and very kind, and I love to hear it, because it's just a very rewarding game in many aspects. Narrative aspect, the combat, even being on the open world and the exploration. Even the fact that you can override robots to Thunderjaws and like make them fight each other. Like, there's some silly dumb fun like that. Like, there's so many things that you can do, and some of it is quite elevating. There's a lot of emotional resonance with some moments, and and you can do stuff like that too, right? So like, it's to have the best of both worlds in that sense, right? Like, all out action and then touching moments like that. It's hard to find in most games, right? But I think that Horizon covers all bases in that sense. So I don't know. I'm glad that we get the chance to talk about it. I really do.
Me too. Yeah, and I'm totally down to talk about it way more whenever these new the new games are released, and if a multiplayer game is released, it's going to be wild. And I'm sure we're probably several years away from a third installment of the main franchise. Which is totally fine with me, by the way. Guerrilla. That's totally fine with me. Take all the time you need, because I'm pretty sure that'll probably be the final installment of Aloy's story. And
oh my god.
totally fine with them taking their time to make sure that it's completely perfect to her and true to her character. I just am imagining that it's probably going to be the biggest of the franchise in terms of how long it is, how much is packed into it, because there are new threats that are to come. There are new characters that were introduced in Forbidden West that will probably play a larger role in a third installment, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing how the DLCs will be incorporated into that story. If you didn't know, both games have a DLC. Both are amazing. Highly recommend them. They're very important to the story, so play them if you haven't. I loved the Frozen Wilds DLC. It was fantastic.
Anyway, it's been a truly amazing chat. Very satisfying to talk about Horizon, because it's one of these conversations that, for me at least, since I started this podcast in February, it has been on the back of my mind, and it's one of the things that it's been a long time coming. As I said, since 2017, it sparked my love for gaming. So to talk about it with you, that you also had your own journey into getting it and making this account, and getting together to talk about it, I think is just amazing. So thank you for taking the time to talk about it.
Thank you for having me. Meeting other gamers that actually love and appreciate the game has just been fantastic, because I knew that it had sold millions of copies, but it's super rare to kind of come across a person that is so enamored by it and in love with it. So that's just been amazing to have a community of people now that really appreciate the story for what it is and the
Yeah,
character of Aloy for who she is,
exactly.
and are looking forward to future installments as well. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So if you ever want to talk about it, let's talk about it. I'm always down to talk about it. But I'm really glad that you asked me to come on, and I was honored. It's been fantastic, and I could talk about it for hours.
Yeah, no, hell yeah. I mean, thank you as well for saying that. Yeah, Horizon is our favorite franchise, so it's nice to talk about it.
Yeah, and let me say, holidays are around the corner.
Hmm.
Normally the games go on sale, so if you haven't picked them up, please pick them up and play them. They're really good. You'll
Yeah.
love the story, and if you don't, I'll pay you back. I'll give you your money back, but try them out. You will fall in
Oh,
love with Aloy as a character. I promise. She is fantastic. So
yeah.
give it a try if you haven't. Any of the games, they're fantastic.
That's right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Try Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and Forbidden West, and the DLCs as well.
Yeah, try it out, please.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot for making the time to chat, and yeah, we will talk again. Hopefully, I don't know when's the time frame for the MMO or the last entry, but they just surprised us this year. We just talked about
Yeah,
it, so I don't know.
yeah,
Hopefully, we'll be surprised next year.
yeah. The Game Awards are coming up. Maybe maybe Guerrilla will come up and be like, "It's coming in 2 years," and I'll have to lose my mind again. But yeah, I'm really excited. So just whenever you want to talk about it, I'm down to talk about all the lore, all the tribes, all of it. Just
Yeah.
whenever you're down, I'm down.
All right. Thank you so much, Em, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you
Uh,
for watching and listening. Thank you for having me.
of
It's
course.
been fantastic. Like, awesome.